Dr. Nikki, and I want to continue talking about using the Rec and Rec to teach word problems. So we're looking at kindergarten and we're looking at level two take from problems. So we could say, Susie had 10 marbles and she gave one away. How many does she have left? Or we could say, Susie had 5 marbles and she gave 4 away. How many does she have left? So we're going to tell takeaway problems and we're going to use the Rec and Rec. Now remember, one of the things I say is that taking away 0 is a lot more difficult to understand than taking away 1. So you would start by doing take away 1 problem. Susie had, 5 marbles and she gave 1 away. Or Susie had 10 marbles and she gave 1 away. And then eventually you're going to, after that go to Susie had, 3 marbles and she didn't give any away. How many did she have left? Or Susie had 5 marbles and she didn't give any away. How many did she have left? Or Susie had 10 marbles and she didn't give any away. How many did she have left? So you usually teach take away 1 before you teach take away 0 because it's an easier concept. And then remember that you also want to work on take away all. So Susie had 10 marbles and she gave them all away. Or Susie had 5 marbles and she gave them all away. How many were left? So remember when you're teaching that you're teaching take away 1, then you're teaching take away 0, then you're teaching take away all of them. So that's just something to think about. And then you also want to work on taking away within 5. So you would do things like Susie had 5 marbles and she gave away 1, or Susie had 5 marbles and she gave away 2, or Susie had 5 marbles and she gave away 3, or within 5. And then you start taking away within, and well, that would be actually taking away from 5, right? But if you're taking away within 5, you would do like Susie had 3 marbles and she gave away 1, or Susie had 4 marbles and she gave away 2, and then you would do taking away, from 5, and then you would do taking away within 10. So you're doing things like Susie had 7 marbles and she gave away 3, or Susie had, 6 marbles and she gave away 5, or so all of those combinations. Susie had 9 marbles and she gave away 8, right? And then eventually you are going to do take from 10. And so you say Susie had 10 marbles and she gave away 1, or Susie had 10 marbles and she gave away 2, or Susie had 10 marbles and she gave away 3. Now, so something I'm trying to really get you to think about here is how you scaffold the telling of that. So you're not just always doing kind of like random numbers, but that you're conscientiously thinking about how you're scaffolding that. So you're teaching kids how to take away 1 from a number, and then how to take away 0 from a number, and then how to take away a number from itself, and then how to take away numbers within 5, and then how to take away numbers from 5, and then how to take away numbers within 10, and then how to take away numbers from 10. So it's not random, it's very intentional, and I think that's really important. And so that's how to think about that on the Rec and Rec. And then also thinking about that on the number frames. Now we can clear the board. We were telling problems before. And so then remember, we can go down here, we can change our icons. Maybe we want to tell stories about frogs. So we can change it to frogs, and then we can go in here and we can pull out our frames. So let's pull out a 5 frame and let's pull out a 10 frame. And so we could say there were 5 frogs on the log, right? And 1 jumped off, right? Or there were 5 frogs on the log and none jumped off. Or there were 5 frogs on the log and 2 jumped off, right? Or there were 4 frogs on the log and 2 jumped off, right? So we're going to put this one down here right now. Or there were 3 frogs on the log and 1 jumped off. Or there were 3 frogs on the log and they all jumped off, right? So again, that very intentional scaffolding, that I'm going to take away 1, and then I'm going to work on taking away 0, and then I'm going to work on taking away a number from itself, and I'm going to work on taking away numbers within 5, right? And then I'm going to work on taking numbers away from 5. And then after I've done a lot of that with the 5 frame, remember 5 frames are really important. You should have 5 frames, and your students should have those same 5 frames in their toolkits. And then you should have 5 frames that kids can walk on as well. And so you have that, and then you go to your 10s, and then you start telling stories where you're doing within 10. So, right, you say there were 7 frogs and one jumped away. There were 7 frogs and they all jumped off, right? There were 7 frogs and 2 jumped off. Now, remember, again, I can move 5, 6, 7 because I want kids to see that 5 is that benchmark number, right? So we don't even have to count all of them out. We can say there were 7 frogs. And so we're going to move these frogs over here so they're out of our way. And now we are saying there's 7 frogs, and I can either work on telling 1, telling none. I can work on saying there were 7 frogs and 3 jumped off, right? So I'm working on a very intentional way of thinking about it, right? So that kids get that concept. Oh, what happens when you take 1 away from a number? What happens when you take 2 away from a number? What happens when you take a number away from itself? And so you work on that, and then eventually you work on taking away a number from 10. So there were 10 frogs. And again, there were 10 frogs and 1 jumped off, right? There were 10 frogs and none jumped off. There were 10 frogs and they all jumped off. There were 10 frogs and 2 jumped off. Again, remember, you want kids to see that 8 and 2 make 10, that there were 10, 2 jumped off. So we have 8, and then we have 2. An 8 and 2 are 10. Now, in first grade, you really talk about that, but in kindergarten, you want them to actually be aware of it and to see it. So I love it for this reason. And then, you can also, with these, let's say we go in and we change our icon again. We tell different stories. Let's say we're going to tell starfish stories. Okay. And so we go in and we tell starfish stories. And we say there's 7 starfish. Right? And I can go down here and use the pen because we're not going to always use 10 frames. We can use drawings. So I can go down here and use the pen, pull up the pen, and then I can say, well, there were 7 starfish and 2 went away, and just cross those off, right? Or there were 10, now I'm going to erase that. Well, I don't want to, I want to clear the drawing. So I could say there's 7 starfish, and I could say 5 went away, right? So I could use it as a drawing. I could use it in the 5 frames, but I could also use it as a drawing. And I think that's really important and helpful. So kids can see, oh, we could do it on the Rec and Rec. We could also do it in the 5 frame or the 10 frame, or we could do it as a drawing. All right, so those are take from result unknown stories. And, kids just in kindergarten, they just need to know we're taking away things, right? So that's a level 2 problem in kindergarten. All right, I'll see you next video.